heard a lot this morning about what we've done. You've heard a lot this morning about what we're doing. I would like to talk about what you can do. But before I talk about that, it's important to hold a mirror up and reflect on city government and elected officials, on leadership. Because as we talk about physical violence, we have to understand you will never end the crisis known as physical violence unless you end political violence, unless you end social violence, cultural violence, economical violence, racial violence that has occurred for centuries across this country, across this Commonwealth, within our own city. That is incredibly important for us to recognize today, because the root causes of all of these incidents have to be addressed. We talk about guns sometimes, and I think to a certain extent, absolutely we need to do something about guns, but I carry a gun every single day and I'm not shooting anyone because my basic needs are met. I use it for the defense, not on the offense. It's incredibly important for us to hold that mirror up and talk about what we need to be doing better, which leads me to what you as community can do. Number one, are you involved in some capacity? Whether that's a neighborhood association, whether that's your church, whether that is some sort of political advocacy group, whether it's a social group of friends, are you involved? Are you building power with community? Because the more people you have, the more power you have. And a lot of times you look at people who are considered power holders in the power structure up here on this stage, and you don't realize you as community have more power than we do. Because there's 26 Metro Council members, but there's about 26,000 constituents in each of those districts. How many of those 26,000 plus people are plugged into the work that you're hearing about right now? If this is your first time hearing about the Office for Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods, the first time hearing about the responses that they have, that is a problem. You have to plug into the work that is being done. There's no sense in us quadrupling the public safety budget, doubling funding for the Office for Youth Development, doubling funding for anything that we're doing if people don't use it, if you don't plug into the work. That's incredibly important. What you can also do is hold everybody accountable. Oftentimes we talk about holding elected officials accountable, but I promise, if you can't hold your neighbor accountable for, I don't know, cutting their grass or showing up to a community meeting, you will never hold Mayor Fisher accountable. If you can't hold your kids accountable for doing their homework, you will never hold President James accountable. If you can't hold the people who live where you live in your own neighborhood accountable, there's no way in the world you're going to hold the so-called decision makers and policy makers accountable for the consequences of what happened this morning. Everybody's on this stage drying their tears and talking about how sad they are. And there's a place for being sad, but I'm mad. I'm mad because what we have talked about today is something that we're talking about over and over and over and over. It shouldn't take from 2012 until this budget cycle for us to fully fund an office that is dedicated to preventing violence. That is problematic. So as you watch this, as you engage in what we're talking about right now in this moment, and you're rightfully so very angry, I need you to turn that anger into advocacy, because that is the only thing that will incite action. My job is to pass laws. Mayor Fisher's job is to make sure that those laws actually happen. The chief's job is to make sure those laws are enforced. What is your job? Because everyone in Louisville is responsible for Louisville.